Welcome to the Green Room. It's a place to hang out and consume cannabis and get to know some of our industry leaders in a deep and meaningful way. Today's guest has been a part of the cannabis movement for 53 years. It's my honor to introduce you to Bruce Margolin. How's it going, Bruce?
That's beautiful. Thank you. It's a beautiful day, and the sky is blue. It's a little cold, but I'm happy to be here with you and all your guests.
Yeah, I mean, cold is relative. We're in LA, so yeah.
Anything below 70 is cold in my experience.
Right, me too. I really like 79.
Hey, look, I've been here since I was 4 years old, LA, and this is the place as far as I'm concerned. But it can get hot here and it gets some cool here too. So I'm a valley boy. Whatever I can tell you is that I like the heat, heat.
Me too, 100%. So where were you when you were four before you came to?
Well, we're gonna go way back. I was in Ohio and North Carolina. My father was a Marine, a drill instructor in the Marines. Re-up when I was about 3 years old for the Second World War. We went to North Carolina, came back to Ohio, Cleveland, and my dad got involved with a group of gentlemen that wanted to put him as a front man for the nightclub called the Foxhole. They put on illegal boxing and a little gambling.
Oh,
There was a gunfight there. My dad took this gun away from some of these guys, and the cops told him, "You better leave town, Harry, because we got to move in on this place." So they packed up, got a big truck and a trailer, and we came to California. And I remember that, even though I was 4 years old, it was very exciting because I was really excited about the whole thing going on in California, which was the horses and the cowboys, right? And
there
I
was
loved.
cowboys and horses?
Yes, remember those in the olden days? It was horses everywhere, right?
Wow.
Yes, as a matter of fact, so it's very exciting for me to go across country. I remember we got to California in the desert. We had a flat tire, so Ben came up on a horse to help us fix the trailer and get it back to shape. And it was so exciting. So I got very involved with horses as a young boy. And because we lived on a street in North Hollywood that had a bunch of old ranches on it, there were people that were in the business, with the TV and movie industries that had all these different animals that were used during those years, in the movies, horses and dogs and monkeys. And so, as about a 6-year-old, I volunteered to clean up uh, horse shit, excuse the expression, to be able to ride the horses. And then, and that was fun. I went parades and everything else. And, I was in those days. I was a latchkey kid without a dirt road.
Why? What was your dad doing?
My dad was basically painting houses at that point. Okay,
Hmm.
and although he became quite successful later on, but and my mother worked for Lockheed as a bookkeeper. And I had two brothers, older brothers. Anyway, I had a good life as a kid. I ran free, free as the wind.
What
You
was your
know,
mom up to? What
she was working.
was she doing?
She worked for Lockheed as a bookkeeper.
Oh, you said that. Well,
Yeah,
so how did you decide on law?
I'm going to get to that. Okay.
Okay. I'm jumping way too far ahead.
Okay. Wait. All right. So bottom line is, you asked me about my childhood. I
Yes.
ran through the story. Okay,
Yep.
because it was exciting times. All right, and I had some exciting times and it's a lot of fun. Being involved with the neighborhood, they had all these branches that are no longer there, and now they've been changed to track houses. Anyway, so I grew up in the valley there, and I went to Sun Valley Junior High School and North Hollywood High School. And I went to, the reason I'm talking this story, because I talked to Allison before I came on, and she said, make sure you tell the people how you became a lawyer and what it's like for people to do it without going to Harvard like she did. Or my other son went to UCLA, just graduated this year. And my other daughter went to Columbia. But I went to Valley College, okay, because that's the best I could do. And from Valley College, I needed a 2.2 to get to UCLA. I had a 2.2, okay. I was basically a terrible student, all right. I was a party. I liked to party a lot, but I really wasn't focusing very well.
Were did the cowboys like cannabis?
I don't know. I wasn't young. I was too young. I didn't smoke cannabis until I was 25 freaking years old in law
Oh,
school.
wow.
Yeah, that was 1963 or something like that. Well, let me tell you a story about how I became a freaking lawyer. Okay.
Yes, yes, go.
I want to encourage others to realize you don't have to go to these fancy law schools to do it. Okay, I went to law school at night. I worked my way through law school selling shoes. I was on my own since I was 19. My father passed on, and and that's what people can still do today. They can go to undergrad. They go to undergrad at Valley colleges or other community colleges and get into law school. Some are 4 years law school, some are 2 years law school, and they can become lawyers. And it's a wonderful thing to do because being a lawyer gives you an opportunity to really make a difference in people's lives and in the community. And I wanted to be a lawyer, but I never thought I was capable of it. However, when I took my first test at law school, at a court called torts, which is the law regarding civil uh, um, damages for people who get injured in cars and things like that. And the teacher came out and said, I gave this guy the highest grade in the class. And I'm going to read it to you, even though he misspelled the first 4 words on his essay.
Huh.
Intentional infliction of mental distress is what it's called. Okay. And, but you know what? You don't have to worry about it as a lawyer because you'll have a secretary and she'll do writing and all that stuff for you. I said, oh my God. And I thought I died and went to heaven. And so I became her pet. And she was very generous at her time. And I did the Cabasa Law School in the first year. And once I passed school, I realized I saw on the wall what was going on with marijuana prosecutions and how terrible it was. In 1967, it was the height of the busts they were doing for people and putting these young hippies in jail and people of color, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I was doing a little bit of research and I was curious why between 66 and 67, when you first became an attorney, the arrests for cannabis in LA and California doubled that year.
I know exactly. I came at the height of the storm, okay? And so my practice took off like a mushroom. And
Your first client paid you $25.
yeah, well, that's true. My first client was actually a DUI case, but I did
I mean,
represent
your
people.
first cannabis client.
Yeah. Anyway, so I wanted to say this, okay? Um, I was down for down for helping people get out of trouble with weed cases, okay? I had other cases too as a young lawyer. I was on my own. But I also saw that the laws weren't going to change in the courtroom because one time I argued to a judge in this case involving about 15 kids that got busted at a hippie house. One kid had the weed in his car, in his pocket or something. And I say, hey, judge, I don't see a basis to punish somebody under the law because the American Bar Association says that punishment is supposed to be based on the intended wrong. I said, what is the intended wrong involved with marijuana? I just don't see it. I went on with the whole story. It's not addictive. It's not a gateway drug or anything like that. He said, well, young man, he broke the law. I said, well, I guess I have to do something about the law. So I went into politics a pot. I started an organization called CAMP, the Campaign to Abolish the Marijuana Prohibition in 1968. And from that, I mushroomed into a lot of activities involving legalization. We had a truck and all that. Then in 1970, I ran for public office against a 26-year incumbent named Charles Conrad, Republican. And I won the primary, almost won the ejection, won the whole seat when I was 28 years old or 29 years old, for less than 5% with no money, just on the marijuana legalization platform. And in turn, that helped turn around the whole Democratic Party on the west side of Los Angeles. And then I went at that point to India and traveled with, I'll tell you about that in a moment.
Yeah, I was going to say you're jumping ahead.
Yeah, well,
Um,
yeah, go ahead.
can you describe, because I looked it up and I was pretty surprised at the penalties for simple possession. Can you talk about what the laws were when you got into this?
It's from 1 to 10 years if you didn't get probation. If you,
Mandatory, right?
well, it's supposed to be, and I'm not sure what that term means. Okay, that term is very ambiguous under the law. It does say mandatory.
Mandatory is ambiguous.
Yes, because judges can still give you probation, arguably under certain circumstances. I guess they can or can't. I don't remember any long, but I knew it was a problem. But most cases, okay.
It said, here, let me read it because I wrote it down because it was so
Yeah.
interesting. Simple possession of any amount of marijuana drew a minimum of 1 to 10 years in prison with no parole until a year had been served. An offender with any prior felony conviction got 2 to 20 years, and with two priors, 5 to life in prison. Possession of marijuana for sale, a new offense in 1967, drew 2 to 10 years in prison, 5 to 15 with any prior, 10 to life with two priors. Sale of marijuana was punished by a mandatory 5 or 10 years to life with no possibility of parole until 3 years have been served. What the fuck?
That's if the judge did not give you probation, okay? For
Okay,
for
okay.
example, Timothy Leary, he went down for a couple of roaches in Laguna Beach when he was 50 years old. And they gave him prison, 1 to 10 years, okay? And they had no prior. And that was happening with people. It was really bad news, okay? It was tough, tough times. And I am proud to say I've defended successfully more marijuana cases than anybody in the country. But I had a thing going on very well, okay? In those days, the constitutional rights were actually in play, not unlike it is today. And the judges were very keen to suppress searches if they were unlawfully made. And as a young lawyer out of law school, I was very hip to the cases involved that area of practice, which is called suppression of evidence. And I'd win cases back to back because one thing the cops didn't do is knock notice when they came into a home. They remember those days they kicked the doors and they thought that was the way they should do it to protect themselves and people inside from, knowing they were there. The court said, no, you can't do that. You got to knock a notice. And they just didn't want to do it. I was winning cases back to back every day, okay? And
Nice.
other search and seizure motions because the Supreme Court in 1963, in a case called Mapp versus Ohio, said unlawfully seized evidence must be suppressed because the cops, that's the only way they could keep them from doing it, is to suppress the search. Anyway, so by the time I was 29 years old, I had 8 lawyers working for me, and I was very successful. I ran for public office. I was a hero in that regard too, and I was party hardy. But the reason I was on my own since I was 19 because I lost my brother when I was 14, my older brother, and my father when I was 19, and those two impacted me greatly about how I saw life. And I was just to say, I didn't recover from it. Okay. And so at that time, being only 29 years old, knowing life was so short, which I knew from seeing what happened to my brother when he was 24, and my father was a relatively young man when he passed on, that I want to know more about the meaning of life, which sounds corny, but that's my story. And even though I had this tremendous career and a beautiful home, a dog, and nice cars, and a lot of a lot of attention, I decided that I needed to do my search. And so ended up going away. I traveled to Greece and Israel and Africa, and ended up in India. And there I met Baba Ramdas, like happenstance. You know who he is? Richard Alpert. You ever heard of him?
No.
He was at UC, he was at Harvard with Timothy Leary. Him and Timothy Leary, the ones that established the program they had at Harvard that studied LSD use. You familiar with all that? You know who I'm talking
No.
about?
Give us a lesson.
You don't know anything about Timothy Leary either?
Oh, yeah.
What do you know about him?
I know that you represented him
Well, that's beside the point, but who is
for,
he?
for a couple of roaches. Is that what you said?
No, he escaped from prison, actually. What happened is that, I'll get to that in a moment. So I went to India and I was gone for about a year. It was very fulfilling. It's what I hoped I could experience. And what I learned from it, from my, excuse the expression, my guru, who happens to be named Crowley Baba, who happened to be the same guru that Timothy Leary writes about. I mean, that Ram Dass wrote about in a book called Be Here Now. You ever read Be Here Now? The book called Be Here Now? Okay. Well, it's a very beautiful book and it's very inspiring. It's about his story, having been a Harvard professor, the head of the psychiatric department at Harvard. I'm talking about
Wow.
um, Richard Alpert, who became Baba Ramdas. Okay, anyway, he took acid with Deliri and all that stuff, and they had a program there. They were both thrown out, and he took LSD thousands of times. He was depressed afterwards, no matter what. So he went to India and met this guru named Koli Baba, and was very impressed with him. And wrote this book called "Be Here Now," and that talked about the philosophies of Eastern religious experiences, etc., etc. So anyway, one thing I got from my guru, who was the same one that that Ram Dass had, is that if you have a boon to help people, you should use it. A boon means a power. So I came back to the States, and just then, while I was doing a research, actually, I was doing a meditation course. Uh, Ram Dass, a former Richard Alpert, called me from India and say, Leary just got busted. Can you go see him? And in Santa Ana, and I did, and I represented him because he escaped from prison. He got the 1 to 10 years in Laguna Beach, and he escaped by the help of the weathermen, and he was gone for about 3 years. They finally busted him in Kabul and brought him back. Okay, so that's why I entered that show and defended that case. I defended thousands of cases. Okay, and I fought the fought all the way through my years of practice to legalize marijuana, running for office considerably many times, including governor and U.S. Congress. And I was given the award at basically the title on the ballot as marijuana legalization attorney. And that on the ballot alone was a big success as far as I was concerned. It legitimized our thoughts about legalization. I became the director of Normal in Los Angeles in 1963, gave up my organization called CAMP to join the national office. And I founded the LA Normal, which still exists today. And if folks out there want to look at our website and look at what we're going on right now, we're rocking. Okay, we're doing a lot of work. Matter of fact, we're just working with the veterans who are giving away weed to the veterans right now, and they're doing a beautiful job. And we're working on other things. I'm working on on-site consumption licenses, so we have a place to talk and smoke because right now we don't unless you own a property. And so there's a lot of work to be done, and we're in the midst of it. In the meantime, I'm working with my daughter Allison. You're very familiar with her.
Yep.
We're doing. She's doing a lot of licensing, and I'm doing it with her. It's not a thrill, okay? The courts are all fucked up. You have to wear a mask in the courtroom. You can't hear anybody. It sucks, okay?
Yeah.
It's not like the practice of law like it used to be, but it's what it is. And meanwhile, I've got this beautiful home, and I've got a beautiful life. I've got 4 children. Like Allison, I bragged about already. She went to Columbia, graduated summa cum laude in Harvard Law School. Madison, who writes a magazine, a wonderful magazine called Double Blind. It's on psychedelics. It's very popular. It's very well received. She went to she went to Berkeley undergrad and Columbia for her degree in journalism. And my son went to Berkeley, graduated 4.0. I got to brag about him. What else could do? And I graduated UCLA this year, and I have a 14-year-old, just turned 15 last week, and she's a good girl.
Wow.
But the other day, I went to visit some of the teachers at school that right across the street where I lived, where the kids went to school here, and we're talking about how bragging about them. I'm bragging about them like I am to you. And you know what she said? She asked me this very vital question: Are they happy? We can't forget that's supposed to be the goal in life, you know.
That's right.
And so um, I just want people to know there's many ways to have a success in life. It doesn't always have to be scholarships at some law school or somewhere. If you're doing something you believe in, and that's the answer right there. There's nothing further to do, you know. And if you have a power to help people, you should do it. And serve people, and you'll fulfill yourself.
So the cannabis that you're getting to veterans through LA Normal, is there any way? Oh, it's Happy 420. Everybody, what are we
Okay,
consuming?
I got my joint right here. The first time I've tried. You see my weed?
Yeah, where's your
my.
cannabis plant? Show us your plant.
It's actually right here. Check it out.
That's a
It's
fine.
almost it's almost ready to
There
it's
it
almost
is. Woo!
it's
It looks
almost
like
ready to it's almost ready to harvest. But it still could next another couple weeks of things. I think it's just
it looks like you've already done most of the trimming.
yeah. We've been trimming it down. We've had to. It's been
I like doing it that way. I hate trimming after it's dried. Oh, you muted yourself, Bruce. You are muted. And now you're kind
yeah
of
because we were getting a lot of caterpillar worms. So we had to cut the leaves back. It helped. I'm in
Yeah,
the house too. It's too cold up there.
those caterpillars are the worst. I'm in
Yeah.
my garden all the time just shooing away the butterflies because I don't want them laying their eggs and
Okay.
creating caterpillars.
Yeah, I say hello to Howard. Howard Paris, how are you? Thanks for watching. And Mike Harris. You guys, oh, it's Paris and Harris, right?
You
Right.
guys can unmute yourselves.
I know. And then there's Dale Geringer. Hi, Dale. God
Chris
bless you.
Conrad, Mickey Norris.
Yes. Oh, I love Nikki. I
Hey,
love
Bruce, glad to see you.
same here, brother. That Nikki Norris, she rocks. I'll tell you, her and Chris Conrad, they got it going on. They haven't given up. You know, they fight the fight, and
Hey, we're inspired by you, Bruce.
they fight the fight, and they know that the herb is not just a plant; it's a sacred gift from the goddess and the gods of the world, and it's such a blessing, you know, to be able to smoke and be free at last, at least in California.
So,
Because
Bruce,
you say there was the olden days. It was yes. If you didn't get probation, you went to prison for up to 10 years.
Namaste.
It was no joke. There she is. Look at her. She's always got it together. Nice flag there.
That's right.
Hey, Om Namah Shivaya. You know what that means?
What does it say it again?
Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Shiva. You ever Lord Shiva?
Shiva.
Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Hara Hara Mahadev.
There you go. This is my bro. Hey, look at this is how it goes. Let me tell you, Susan. I gotta tell you, you're a beautiful woman.
Do it.
You're very involved with the sacred herb, but you don't shift and shine over about what it's really about ultimately, okay? Because she's so very naive about blessings of how
Tell me, teach me.
Okay, let me explain this to you, okay? And I do it oftentimes about it. Whenever I smoke, I always say Om Namah Shivaya. It means hail to the Lord Shiva. The Lord Shiva was one of the three aspects of God in Hindu philosophy. Brahma is number one, the creator, which is you can't see Brahma. It's a life force. It brings life to the earth. And there's Vishnu, the preserver of life. And then they say there's Shiva, the destroyer. But when you really know what destroyer is really about, it's not the destroying of burning up houses and all that. It does show Shiva like that. But it really what Shiva does is destroys your ego.
Hmm.
Shiva is known for bringing two things to mankind. One is yoga, and if you don't practice yoga, you're missing it. And number two is this herb. This sacred herb came from Lord Shiva. This is nothing I'm making up. If you look at any kind of historical lectures or things about the Hindu philosophy, you'll see Lord Shiva is known for providing marijuana to us. And so, in honor of Lord Shiva, I say the sacrament Om Namah Shivaya, because Shiva destroys the ego to some degree. And when you're talking and smoking and with friends, how much you become closer to each other, you're less at harm, you're more friendly, you're more open because your ego has been depleted a little bit by this herb. And so the more you talk, the better you are. And that's why this Shiva got to be respected. It's not really to get high so much, it's really much deeper than that.
Yeah, you know what? We need it now more than ever.
All right.
We need it.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that's my number one thing is getting as much cannabis in as many hands as possible. I've been making seeds and clones and giving them away to my neighbors and my friends, and that's what I was getting around to asking you. You know, I always grow more cannabis than I consume.
Mm-hmm.
And is there anybody organizing just backyard growers to give cannabis to veterans?
I just got telling you, there's an organization we met with last weekend. We were part of the program where they're giving veterans marijuana. Lots of okay.
But from backyard growers, I don't know that anyone's doing that.
Because number one is, I'd like to see in the future we should better grow weed in our backyard. If we want to make it organic, we can put it on our label. Go to the local farmers market, sell it there. It's no problem. What's just all this bullshit? And number two is, we pay income tax, we pay sales tax. What else do they want from us? Okay, that's the way it should be. And we should all be able to do that. Unfortunately, it's a way to go before we get that, but that's how I see it too. And you
Yeah.
should be able to grow it in your backyard, but you can't grow it in your backyard. Where do you live? Orange County?
I live in Long Beach.
You can't grow in your backyard.
Yes, I can.
No, you can, not legally.
Yes, I can.
Not as far as I know.
Yes, I can have 6 plants.
Not in your backyard, only in your residence.
No, in Long Beach, you can have it in your backyard as long as you can't see it from the street.
Oh, if it's got a lock on the fence and all that, they have that
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Long
yeah,
Beach?
yeah. I mean, they know I have it. Everybody knows.
Okay, I didn't know Long Beach had that rule.
Yeah,
But-
yeah, yeah.
Hey, Chris, what do you know about that? Anything? Chris, Conrad.
Yeah, I don't know about Long Beach. I do know that in Contra Costa County, where we are, you can kind of grow in your backyard because it's complaint driven. So as long as nobody complains about it, the same with the number of plants. But I don't know about Long Beach.
I
don't know
was
if
just
they said
looking,
that.
Bruce, I was just looking at Lake Elsinore.
Yeah.
And you can, if you have a doctor's recommendation, you can have 12 plants in your backyard.
All right, well, that's cool. Okay, that's good to know. I'm glad of letting outdoor grows because it's very important.
Yeah.
Technically, my weed is right here in a patio. It's not really technically in the residence, but I'll take my chances. And it should be, people should better grow some weed in their backyard, no question. Well, you can't give away up to an ounce legally, you know that, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I don't think it's regulated how many clones you can give away. I know for sure there's no regulation on how many seeds you can give away. That's why I've been making seeds.
I don't think Prop 64 covers between anything between clones and seeds. It says you can go up to an ounce. How about that, Chris? You're the expertise in Prop 64. Remember you told me all these wonderful things about how Prop 215 wasn't going to be affected?
Yeah, and it's not.
Huh?
So the problem is that people don't understand that Prop 215 did not protect growing at all.
They have no idea, these freaking people that from the cannabis world over there. I had a case up in San Luis Obispo. They thought they were doing a favor. They had 200 or 300 plants. They said, forget about it. We're just going to destroy them. I said, what about the medical? They didn't even know about Prop 215. They didn't know what I was talking about. That's how crazy it is.
Yeah.
Put your video on your talk.
Anyway, so it's good to know that letting outdoor grows go on. It's really important, that's for sure, because growing indoors is a pain in the ass. It's expensive. I don't think the weed is good. Nothing like outdoor weed, right? Right?
That's, yeah, 100%. I heard there was a case in Nevada. There's a trade show for hedge called Champs.
Mhm.
One of their vendors was selling seeds, and they came in and raided them and arrested him, brought charges against him. And the owners of Champs paid for his legal defense, and they won because they said this was like 2 years ago. They said the seeds had no THC in them, and they won.
Yeah, that doesn't mean shit unless they took it to the Court of Appeals, and the Court of Appeals said that's the law.
Well, I mean, it's good news for backyard growers like me that want to get the plant in as many hands as possible.
Doesn't help you.
I think, if I may interject again, this is Chris. I think that the way it works is that it just counts as marijuana. So you can have like an ounce of seeds at any given time. And then, it's because I think the definition of marijuana includes fertile seeds. Maybe Dale knows more on that. But
I think you're right, Chris. That was my understanding. And I haven't heard of anybody getting busted for anything like that,
Yeah.
small amounts of seeds or clones, or even small backyard gardens of 7 plants or something like that,
Not getting busted, and even these big grows, they're getting 200 or 300 plants or not. All they're doing is making them sign a waiver so they don't take them to court and call it a nuisance, okay? And so, but it still doesn't satisfy the needs of some people that need more than 6 plants, which is extraordinary in my case. I don't know how many people, but indoors is very hard to grow. But they don't recognize. I'm talking to San Luis Obispo right now to the people, the lawyers there, about, hey guys, what about patients? Where's your law about those people? But they don't even have any. It's crazy.
well, you do still have all your the SB 420 quantities of the 8 ounces and up to 12 plants per patient is still in place. And all your defenses under Prop 215 are still there as well. But most of the people we know are not getting the doctor's authorizations anymore. So
what's this 12 plants per patient? Where are you getting that from?
that part they didn't change that part of SB 420. They only got rid of the collectives.
But the city of Long Beach says you can only have 6 even if you're medical.
Well, the state law says you have 6 mature, 12 immature, and that's still in the state law.
No, hold on.
The problem is localities can ban it. So, Susan, that's the situation. They could actually say you can't grow any medical, but you can still grow your 6 ounces of personal.
Right.
Chris, that Prop 215 didn't have that law. That was something that was passed after Prop 15 to give a guideline for the cops supposedly to leave people alone when they'd say if you had those amounts, it's okay. 12 chance. I don't think it says in Prop 215 the amounts, does it?
It does not, but there's a presumptive immunity for up to 8 ounces that's in SB 420. And when they got rid of the collectives, which the legislature did, not the initiative, they did not change that. So you still have, you can give away 8 ounces to another patient if you're a patient. You still have that protection.
Good.
It's not repealed.
I want to say how much we should be appreciating this moment of all of us speaking together in this nice atmosphere at a time when at least our brothers and sisters are not going to jail for marijuana except in extraordinary circumstances. And it's wonderful the way we're able to smoke and talk a midnight joke. And it's wonderful that so many people can grow a lot of weed and not get in trouble these days, really. And it's such a change of situation than it was before. It's a total blessing. And I just want to say all you guys played a part in that. And I think it's very important just to recognize that we should be we should be happy. And I am happy. And I hope you guys are too. It's not great.
But-
It's not wonderful, but it's so much better than people going to jail all day long, you know? It's the worst.
Oh, that's so beautiful, Bruce. I am going to save that little piece of video
Okay.
and use it for something because that was just beautiful. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. So the times have changed, and I'm glad to see it. I like to see we have a different initiative that allows backdoor grows, backyard grows. We can sell at your local market, and maybe to limit the amount of commerciality you can be involved with, but give us some freedom to be free at last, and things we should be able to do. We want to share this sacred herb. It's very important. We're doing the Lord's work by making it available. We're not proselytizing it. We don't need to, because the truth lies within its being. So I just think we got a lot of things we can do here, and I want to ask about both Geringer and Chris and Nikki and etc. How do you see the future? What are we going to do about Prop 64? Some of the confusion that's in it that doesn't make me feel 100% good about it.
Well, you
What do we
know,
do?
there's one good thing in Prop 64 with regards to outdoor personal cultivation. That becomes automatically legal under Prop 64 when the federal government makes
Uh-huh.
it legal,
That's
okay?
right.
So
Yeah.
that's something, and that's actually possible. That could happen in the next administration, right? So and that'll open up a whole new world.
So you say again, once it becomes legal federally, it'll be able to grow it? What do you mean? Say it again.
In Prop 64, they have the personal use cultivation provision says you can grow 6 plants, but you have the right to grow 6 plants, but only indoors.
Right.
However, when it becomes legal federally, then you can grow it outdoors too, okay?
Okay, but you're still
We can come out of the closet finally, you know?
yeah, but you're still subject to local regulations, unfortunately, right?
Oh, tell me about it, God.
I mean, it's so tough. I mean, I got
Kick
cases in California. It's crazy, you know, that some of these places.
It's so painful. I remember, you know, we got away without any of that shit until well after Prop 215 passed. It was like, you know, open season. And then I think it was 2006 or so in Mendocino, in Ukiah, there was this neighborhood that got upset because of the smell of pot in that, it was so pervasive in the neighborhood. And they managed to get a city ordinance banning out, I'm trying to remember exactly, it banned outdoor cultivation in the neighborhood or something like that. And that was like the first land use ordinance, nuisance ordinance. And sure enough, it got upheld by the courts and it took off like a rocket. And we've had nothing but nuisance, been bothered by nuisance ordinances ever since.
Yeah, Fresno got involved with it right from the beginning and just fucked us all, you know. It was terrible. Anyway, but people aren't going to jail generally, although we have some cases up north that they are in jail right now over $2 million mail bail, but that's beside the point.
Oh
And
yeah, tell me about it. What did tell us? Tell us what two.
these are Chinese people. They're up there called Moans. They took over the whole northern, what's it called,
Siskiyou.
Siskiyou. They had 500. They bought this property for $500 a piece. Okay, very cheap property, and they all grown weed. They had like 1,400 grows. Okay, and finally they took down one of the guys. Right now he's in jail, and some other people are being potentially accused. And they're holding this guy at $2 million bail. Okay, and it just doesn't make sense at all.
Those guys, the Hmong, have been doing this
Yes,
for
yes.
years now. They first showed up, I remember, in Trinity County,
Yeah.
and they're also in Oakland, and there's some, I think, even
Right.
doing smoking opium. But anyhow,
It's crazy. Anyway, so it was pretty extraordinary. They're making gazillions of dollars. There's an article in the LA Times about it, not recently, but in the past. They got pissed off about it, really, because I guess they didn't like it after all. They weren't paying attention to the cops and not trying to play it all. And so they had a move, but just against a couple of people, apparently. But anyway, other than that, there's very few things going on. People are not getting in trouble. What do you hear, Chris, about people getting in trouble? You have a lot of calls to help them in court?
No, it's really dropped. I was getting calls about the odor searches for a while there, but since the appeals court came down the Shoemake decision and said agreed with us that those are not legal, those have all gone away. I've got probably my last of my SB 420 cases is winding down at this point. So what I'm seeing is not getting as much done. Not having as much legal work. But what I would like to bring up here going forward is that we've been talking about what to do about localities that are banning smoking in residences and stuff like that.
yeah, that's
so I put this into the chat here because I want to get your opinion about this, Bruce, which is that Health and Safety Code 11362.1 A4 says that I have to patch it together. It shall be lawful under state and local law and shall not violation of state or local law for persons 21 of age or older to smoke or ingest marijuana or marijuana products. Now, I understand about in public that they're putting these restrictions, and I understand in the business code, which I pasted below, that's definitely allowed. But do you think that this gives us some kind of a right, a way of fighting all these bans on smoking in people's homes? Because, you got your private property right.
We just did this for in West Hollywood, okay? And Dale led the show with the science of it. Besides that, we won. We finally got them to say they can't do that. But what was the final reason that they came up with it? Dale? Why?
Well, it got complicated, and now we're fighting the same damn thing in San Francisco. Actually, a worse ordinance that would ban all smoking of any kind, especially including explicitly cannabis or vaping, of course, in any apartment or dwelling with more than 3 units. And this really even include people who've been living there for 40 years smoking pot. I mean, it's just totally absurd. It's being sponsored by an outgoing Asian supervisor, Norman Yee, who I don't think he appreciates what a hornet's nest he's stirring up. But I think Chris has a good point. There is an explicit reference in Prop 64 saying that people have a right to use and smoke marijuana. Okay, and if you are living if you can't smoke it in public, then you've got to be able to smoke it at home in your residence, wherever that is, in an apartment or a homeless encampment or what be it. And if they're trying to deny that, I think there's an arguable case that they're being denied their right to use marijuana under Prop 64.
You're right. In West Hollywood, they had this fight. We first started out with it was like 4 against 1, and then they turned to 3 against 1, and then they finally realized that they really can't do this legally. And we presented that issue to them in that code section, okay? And so they turned them around, but they didn't really rule exactly why they did it, but they changed their mind.
I remember that. Actually, the legal technicality that they're working with in the city, the West Hollywood city attorney said they could not ban tobacco and not ban marijuana as well. That's Prop 64 required you to ban marijuana wherever tobacco smoking was.
That's what he was claiming. Yeah.
And the language sort of suggests that very strongly, but in fact, didn't say anything about local governments could power to allow marijuana smoking in different places. Okay, so we got Tamara Todd of the Drug Policy Alliance, who wrote the language in Prop 64 regarding smoking, sent a letter to West Hollywood City Council explaining, no, there's nothing in Prop 64 to prevent a local government from having different rules for marijuana smoking and tobacco smoking. And with that legal glitch removed, we switched to vote on the city council, and we're going to have to switch some votes up here in San Francisco. The anti-smoking people are really blowing smoke hard, and they're funded by, they're funded by the California Department of Public Health and the CDC and the UC San Francisco, up where I am, smoking center, which is like the center of this tobacco prohibition culture. And they turn out real fierce crowds. The anti-smokers, they're out to ban it everywhere, and they show up vigorously, at these meetings. So we're going to have to put up a strong turnout of our own, but we have to tell, San Francisco is famous for its tolerance and welcoming of cannabis culture, and this is just not supportable.
I have a solution.
What is it?
Yes.
And it's really fun. It's a fun solution, and it also solves advertising problem. So instead of, remember back in the day when we had phone booths?
Yeah.
So we have these booths everywhere. They're pods, they're smoking pods, and people can put their advertising on the smoking pods, put them on public sidewalks, smoking pods everywhere. It's only right. It's
what kind of good youth smoker to come up with those kind of ideas?
It'll be a place to meet people that smoke weed.
Yeah.
Actually, I think there's a real sensible solution to this whole smoking issue. It is, if somebody is blowing smoke or smells or anything like that that's annoying the neighbor has a right to complain about it. And if it's too bad, you could cite them and call in the police if the person is completely recalcitrant. But you have to prove that person was in fact, sending secondhand smoke into that apartment. And you don't have to stop everybody else in the whole goddamn building from smoking marijuana because there's one doofus there smoking it on his porch if everybody else is, behaving themselves. So we know, distancing and proper ventilation. Yeah, you can have places where people can smoke, and then, some other places that are smoke free. So that's the obvious solution here, but the anti-tobacco people won't hear of it.
I'm waiting.
They're going to have.
Hi, Nikki. Hi, Nikki. Hi, Swami. What do you guys think? You guys want to do Swami's? What are they called? Sweat tents. We could do a Swami brand smoking pot all over California.
Susan, I think that the group you might want to get interested in that will be the people who make the air filtration systems, because they can use those demonstrations, because they have to have a filter on it, right? So they set it up, then it's promotion for them, and it also gives people a place to do. I think it's a very interesting idea.
Anyone like Blade, like air freshener, whatever.
If anybody who tried to live up here in the Bay Area during like August and September and October, when the whole the countryside was on fire. We bought a smoke filter. It was really.
You need to sue Heavenly Father for making all that smoke.
And I swear, anybody in San Francisco who was smoke sensitive got more unhealthy air right there in just one day than they would from secondhand smoke all year. That's
Yes.
my guess.
For sure. 100%. You were saying, Swami?
Oh, well, I just want to chime in a little bit about, we need to talk, I mean, we're talking about people's right to smoke, and that's been established for a while now with 215 and so on. We need to take care of the small farmers. We're getting screwed left, right, and center. You know, how can you tax medicine? How can you restrict the growers? We're the outdoor growers, and we're protecting the soil and so on. And I think we need to mobilize to totally change the law. I do want to say in favor of Prop 64 that there was kind of a domino effect after California passed 64, and now we have all these states in the country and like all these other countries, you know, Thailand and Colombia and all the other, Mexico. If we hadn't passed 64, I don't think that that wave would have happened. So we got to correct 64. There's a lot of bad things about it, but I still think it was a major statement to the whole rest of the world. And I think it's still important. But the whole idea of taxation is misdirected.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just Chris Conrad takes a lot of credit for Prop 64. He promoted it and explained it to us, and he did everything to convince us.
I got a lot of attacks for it anyway. I'll go that far. Taking credit is one thing, but I definitely took a lot of flack.
Maybe
You didn't write
much.
it anyhow.
So speaking of initiatives, though, can I give just a little shout out?
Swami,
You see, the counties and the cities have the right through Prop 64 to say no. And as you all know, over 30 counties say no, and over 300 or 400 cities say no. So we have to work on them jurisdiction by jurisdiction and get that changed. We haven't win yet. We got to keep going.
It's arbitrary. It's got to be based upon something more than just arbitrary decision. And we're going to work on that. And that's something I'm sure Dale wants to take with us, and Chris Conrad too, that we want to continue efforts here to make us free at last, truly free, with the rights that humans should have. And we can't let.
Yeah, you know what? It's a really deep and complicated question, but I really think this is all going to get clarified magnificently when federal law changes. But until they change federal law, we're just going to be walking around in the dark with this Prop 64 stuff. But when they change federal law, everything gets rewritten in California, and then we'll have our opportunity to establish, small independent collectives and things like that.
I heard we have a little shot at this state's legislation in federal court, because it was supposed to go to Feinstein as the committee leader, and it's not going to somebody else, and that's supposed to help. What do you think about that? Are we going to get it done?
What? Well,
states
nothing is okay this year, unless the Democrats win the Senate, which I don't think is going to happen. It's going to be impossible to get legalization out of the Senate.
They won't go.
Okay, so that
guys, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Well, yes, I do. We only have 10 minutes left, or maybe 20. And I would rather keep the conversation, because the federal thing is a crapshoot.
Okay,
so let's talk about California. And one of the things that I was really curious about, all of your thoughts is, why are we, all that research money that was just released, what are you happy about and what are you not happy about?
Whoa.
Who got
it's
the money?
Same old to find out what we're doing wrong. All the academics are trying to find out the bad things we're doing. If you look at the list of what they're talking about, it's the same old.
And
we're paying for it.
Right. And there was no harm reduction kind of research, what are the safest kind of vaporizers, for example? There's a lot of research that would be useful, or epidemiological research, actually, just seeing what's going on with pot smokers out there. They're more interested in these they're looking at it through microscopes all the time, and they can't get the whole thing in view, it seems. But yeah, it's the usual bunch of academics who've been doing this stuff for the last umpteen years and still don't have the right to use, they still can't use marijuana that's grown by actual people in California. They have to get it from the
I
University of Mississippi.
I didn't see any real economic research or social equity really. I mean, it was like Swami was saying, it's all of the negative there, and
Okay,
it's millions.
And if they want to do negative, there's plenty of negative they can research anyway. Like how are bans affecting the eliminating the underground market, which is the number one goal of the initiative? Have they done any research on that? Well, how are the taxes affecting things? I mean, what are we going to do about mitigating secondhand smoke? Is secondhand smoke a problem? I mean, these are the things that are like people are complaining about. That's what they should be researching.
Secondhand soap during COVID is a problem as well. But yes, I get your point. Bruce,
okay, yeah, let's finish this
Bruce
program.
hour. What do you think, Bruce?
I think that I want to say how much I love you guys, how wonderful it's known you for all these years, how wonderful to see you're all healthy, you're all striving, you all are believers. It's such a blessing to have you as my family because we are family. It's no joke, it's not a pretense. Your family doesn't have to be born under the same roof. We are family, okay? And I love the fact that all of you love that herb because it is so sacred and so we're so blessed. As you see, the society is becoming aware of the importance of plants, and I think the cannabis has introduced the idea more widely as we see mushrooms coming into effect, ayahuasca coming into effect, all the things that the Divine Mother has given us. And so our work is we're so blessed that we were involved with this campaign. We're so blessed that we have an opportunity here now to see the results of our work, how great it is for us to be able to do this at this time in our lives instead of being young puppies. And this time we've gone through the trips. We had the opportunity to work through it. And now we see ourselves in this very special moment of taking credit for something as remarkable as the change of the laws. And as we see around the world, how things might change, And that's all I want to say, except I really appreciate you to give me this time to talk.
I'm not letting you go yet. I have at least 7 more minutes. I wanted to talk about when in 1967, apparently you started camp earlier, and Chris had a question about camp, which we'll get to. But so you started before you started organizing before you became a lawyer. You didn't have the internet back then. You didn't have cell phones. How did you organize people? What were events like?
It wasn't before I became a lawyer, okay? When I first became a lawyer, I thought about it. I was walking across the parking lot. I thought NAACP. I was thinking something about about marijuana. So I decided the campaign campaign to abolish the marijuana prohibition camp, okay? And so I went down to the Free Press to put a little, one of those little ads in there, and to say, join me in this campaign, okay? And when I was there was a editor, not an editor, but a journalist that saw me and wanted to know what I was doing and wrote a big article, front page of the Free Press about lawyer never loses pot case, okay? Which was very good for my career, which I did about 100 of them at that point. But yeah, I think cop deals almost 90% of them probably, who knows? But that was the name of the game because otherwise you face a felony and you'd be living out the rest of your life. But anyway, nevertheless, so it took off like a bandit. I mean, this thing became very popular. I got an old truck and we painted marijuana police all over it and had on propaganda, okay? And
That's a terrible idea.
We had rallies, and then and it was.
Who was your attorney? That's a bad idea.
Yeah, it was good for business too because I got a lot of connections. It was great, And so, meantime, like I say, I went to India. I came back afterwards, and still worked on normal. But in 1973, I was invited to San Francisco by Michael Stepanian, and to see groups like mine. There was several other ones to see if they wanted to come under the umbrella of National Normal, and I agreed to forget about camp and to do that. And I'm so glad I did because it's been a great opportunity to meet a lot more sophisticated people and a lot more people that are knew what they were doing ultimately, and that's part of what happened with camp. I love camp. It was, as a matter of fact, there became 4 or 5 other camps around country. In the South, matter of fact, they took the acronym and used it too, camp.
So was there, when I got involved as a volunteer, when I got involved in the movement, there was a lot of suspicion. You know, people were like, if you were new, they were like, who are you and why are you here? So way back then, were your meetings all underground? And
No,
I mean, you did have the truck that was painted with marijuana leaf on it. So
no, we look. It was mostly rallies and parties, and a good excuse under the guise of doing something we thought was exciting and different, and uh, and it was wonderful, and it was great for me because it was a way to defy authority. That's why I liked it. You know what I mean?
huh.
Because that's why I became a lawyer in the first place, and that's why I wanted to be a criminal lawyer. Because my father was a DI in the Marine, a drill instructor, and he was a great guy, but he taught me respect. But nevertheless, had an animosity towards the policing, how they were treating people in the demonstrations and all that stuff. And I was rebellious, so I was so glad to be involved with pot. And I was always concerned about someday they come up with some kind of study that I would regret that I ever got even suggested it, don't we? But thank God it hasn't happened. Uh, and um, and I'm very pleased about that too. That it turned out that it really is good for you. Okay. And even though we don't necessarily promote using marijuana, I don't promote it necessarily. But I know that when you're talking about legalization, it makes it available and you have to take responsibility for consequences. But we've been blessed by that too. All you guys have been blessed by that. It really turned out that the science has backed us up. So we have the Lord and science. And what else we need except believers, right? That's it.
I would love to see some research on the what you were saying about killing the ego, and if cannabis is really effective for that. We need that so desperately. I mean, that is one of the biggest problems with our world right now. Social media has turned everyone into an egomaniac, you know, and our leaders are like, fuck, you know?
Look at the bottom line is, yes, marijuana has that effect on people that they become a little more at peace with themselves and others. And that's an important aspect for the people's health. Matter of fact, my daughter Madison is a writer and journalist. I told she writes this magazine called Double Blind about psychedelics, but she wrote an article in Israel, a big article, it's very popular in the Israeli Times, about how the problem between the Israelis and the Palestinians is that they're all suffering from PTSD. And if they had psychedelics and marijuana, they'd be able to settle down and their problems, okay? And she got the backup of many people in Israel that supported that idea. And it was pretty kind of funny. Anyway, so
Everybody must get stoned. Everybody must get stoned. Everybody
Everybody,
must get stoned.
everybody.
hey, Alexa, play I Smoked Two Joints.
So,
No, wait, Mickey Norris has a question for you, Bruce.
Okay,
well, I just wanted to say, we honor you with high honor, Bruce,
thank you.
that our first thing that we went to in the marijuana thing was in 1988 at your law office, the LA Normal office. And that was a fundraiser. And that was the first time we entered into that space of getting activated in cannabis. Afterwards, we formed our own American Hemp Council and Bach and different things. But you've always created that space for people to come together and get activated. You've always been an educator and provided that space and the law support to people fighting the fight along the way. We honor you with high honor for that.
Thank you.
And also, you know, it's just been, you've always been there as a support and as a facilitator for things to happen and running for office yourself. So for your many years and continued support and your work in behalf of people facing their troubles, and you're putting your money where your mouth is and walking the talk. I just want to say we honor you with high honor and thank you very much and for continuing on. And I see you're not done, and I'm happy
I'm
to
not done, no.
be an OG with you
Yeah.
along the way.
kind of must say, yeah. And can I throw in something too? Because I want to say specifically also that, you know, people, the Jack Herer so-called initiative, a California Hemp Initiative, there's like two camps. There's one group that thinks it's a solution to all the world's problems, and then the other camp that says, well, you know, there's better ways of writing a law. But I really give Bruce a huge amount of credit for helping put that together, because basically what happened was that we saw this other initiative, felt like it was deficient and wanted to do one. And so I was at Jack Herer was at my house at a meeting. We were talking about what to do. And so we wanted to do an initiative, and he decided it had to fit on one piece of paper. But then Jack had this initiative from Oregon, which had like a 4-page preamble before it even got to the initiative that he wanted to use as the model. And so we worked through this whole process. We got 40 people together and put it together in a short amount of time. But basically, once they got to past that point, it was kind of me and Bruce going back and forth, writing on it to achieve these various goals of making it short enough, making sure it was legal, making sure we built the educational component into it, making sure that that it met all these different state laws and all the forms were done properly and so forth. And so, you know, I give Bruce a huge amount of credit for that. And likewise, I saw Bill Britt there. I don't know if he's still here, but Bill and me have worked as experts in the course, but it's the attorneys like, you know, Bruce, who really fought these cases out. And also I give a lot of the respect to the public defenders around the state too, who just stood up and did the work. A lot of times the public defender would pay for it, but then Bruce would be the co-counsel for another defendant. And so we get to work together in ways like that too. So the role of Bruce Margolin in shaping things, in addition to bringing the spiritual side that a number of people have reflected upon, was really profound. And so I also want to honor you with high honors before we go into the less formal part of the discussion.
Beautiful. Absolutely. Yes, we love you, Bruce.
But-
Swami, did you want to add something?
We're almost
Well,
done.
I just wanted to add about the spiritual part, that the connection to Ram Dass and Neem Karoli Baba, and I want to honor you for bringing that forward and still celebrating it, Bruce. The first time I met you, Bruce, was at a State of Cannabis that Susan put on down in I think it was in it wasn't Long Beach anyway, but we've known a lot of people in common, Jacques and all the Das brothers and so on. So that work goes on, and we keep highlighting the spiritual dimension that is the real heart and soul of cannabis. And the reason it does what it does is it has the plant itself is spiritually imbued. Thank you again, Bruce, so much.
Om
Thank
Namah
you.
Shivaya.
It's so nice to be, yes, exactly how I want to end it. Om Namah Shivaya.
Well,
Om Namah Shivaya.
Namah Shivaya.
Hara Hara
Om
Mahadev.
Namah Shivaya.
Before we go, you were there. I'm sorry. I just have to keep going. You were there at the beginning of the legalization of cannabis in California. And now we see a new beginning, the legalization or decriminalization, the legalization of psilocybin. What differences do you see? What similarities do you see? Do you have any advice? Or do you want to get involved?
You know, I talked to Ram Dass about what should I tell the city council about why it's important for people to be able to smoke together on site consumption locations, right? And he said, well, tell them that smoking marijuana is a cross to God. Okay? Just put it in the kitchen. Can you put it in the kitchen?
I think your audio is pretty rough.
It might be Christopher Jennings, possibly. I don't know. Sounds like
Okay, so, but look up, so psychedelics are really not, marijuana, I guess, is a form of psychedelics, okay? But what I've learned from seeing The Life of Timothy Leary, what I learned from my daughter right now, Righteous Magazine.
Bruce, I love this saying from Swami. He says, cannabis is an everyday psychedelic. It's not like mushroom acid psychedelic. It's every day.
My point is, you
Yes.
can't see it. Allison points out, my daughter, that taking psychedelics does not enlighten you necessarily, okay? And you can see The Life of Timothy Leary took all those drugs and ended up not particularly enlightened, okay? That doesn't really make any difference. She tells me that psychedelics are taken by the truck drivers and the gangsters and everything else, LSD, for example, and mushrooms. But I think with weed, it's a little different in some ways, you know? I don't know. It just seems like it's like I say, a path to God. Not that taking psychedelics isn't ayahuasca. I see people opening up to their hearts and souls. I see them taking the cacao, not the cacao, but the what's it called when you get the poked in your arm and all that stuff. And they do have an experience with themselves, but ultimately, it just seems that the use of herb is a good thing to have in your life. You don't go on to anything else. People are not drunk, so you take care of themselves. They honor themselves. And I just think marijuana is a thing, and I can't help but saying it's a total blessing that we have in this world. And I'm glad we're able to still participate in using it, as I've said dozens of times before, and I'm mimicking myself all over again because I'm a little stoned, but I just can't say enough about how important it is to me to live free. Basically, all this fighting I did for legalizing weed because I don't want to be in trouble, you know? I figure, shit, I'm a lawyer and everything else. Why do I have to worry about smoking weed? This is bullshit, you know what I mean? So a lot of it was to protect myself from being, you know, put in that position. Nevertheless, I just got lucky. I came out the wrong time, 1967, at the height of this whole thing where people were getting busted. A lot of them could relate to me because I was young and I was, you know, open and so I was very fortunate, and my life has been very blessed by having that experience and for the people I've learned through this. For example, knowing about Rambas and Leary, I would never know about that kind of people if I had been in a different kind of practice. Many people I've represented over these years, they didn't have the money or really, but they would give me their heart. They would try to teach me. They would give me books. They'd want to enlighten me. They just were just so generous with me in those ways. That made a difference in my world, I think, in a positive way. And that's what I ended with that. What else can I
Well,
say?
Bruce, it's a lot more than luck. I mean, you had the talent and the drive and the heart, and we owe you so much. And so glad that you did and do what you do. And one of my bigger regrets is that I didn't hire you when I was rated. I should have hired you. My life would be different.
Who knows? It's God's will, you know that. But do check out LA Normal, okay? I got a whole crew now on my board of directors. And Chris, maybe you got a chance to check it out. And Nikki, they're doing a lot of good work. They're really rocking.
And
And
promote your book. You've got a book?
I'm working on my book. It's called Down for the Cause. It's a stress to get it through because I got all
Well, no,
these.
you have a book though, right? It's on Amazon.
No, I don't. Do I know? I have only
Yeah,
have
Bruce
my guide,
Margolin's,
my guide for marijuana laws. Yeah.
that's a book.
Oh yeah. Well, that's very still popular. I'm still passing it out, but people don't really care that much about it. But yes, I write it every year, and because I like to keep it up, and it's free online at 420laws.com. That's
Wow,
420laws.com. Just click on it, and
amazing.
it's got all the criminal laws. It's got all the licensing laws, and it's got a lot of articles about how wonderful I am, and it's a nice thing. It's easy to look at, and it's free. I like that. It's cheap.
That's great. That's great. Thank you so much, Bruce. I'm going to edit this recording a little bit and get it up in a day or two. But thank you so much again for all that you do. One more thing.
Look out for my book. You mentioned my book. I am writing a book. I've been writing it for about 20 years now, but
Okay.
it's called Down for the Cause.
Okay. People are trying to get a hold of you right now about that book.
Okay, okay, okay.
We love you, Bruce. Thank you so much.
Pick it up. Pick it up. Okay, thank you, honey. God, thanks for inviting me on. I appreciate it.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us.